Hey folks, welcome back to another one of my videos. I'm Brendan from Bluelight, and over the past several years I've been coaching and supporting people for the police recruitment process. Good 3,500 people are now in the police as a result of my support. So if you'd like to find out a little bit more about those services, check out the links below, and also check out the link to my Facebook support group for those involved in the police recruitment process that's now got over 6,500 people in it. Wowza. So welcome to York. I've just finished a day of one-to-one coaching with one of my clients for the Search Assessment Centre. But this has got nothing to do with that. During the break time, one of my clients who's a PC to Sergeant candidate for the Police Service of Northern Ireland, a couple of months ago, I went over to Northern Ireland at an undisclosed place and coached a group of constable to sergeant candidates and sergeant to inspector candidates for the promotion process. And there's a really good question that was asked because the police have introduced a new Competency and Values Framework. Actually, it's not that new, it's been knocking around for a few years now. But forces are slowly starting to use it to replace the old Competency Framework. And this one is now the Competency and Values Framework. They're often referred to as a CVF. I've put in brackets underneath it the wheel of confusion, and the reason why it's a wheel of confusion is because it's shaped like a wheel. It's got values in it which aren't at any particular level, but it's also got clusters in it which have clusters of behavioural statements in their competencies which come at different levels 1, 2 and 3. So each cluster contains 2 competencies. There are 3 clusters, and each one of those competencies is at different levels, and all of them are enshrined by these values. Yeah, the wheel of confusion. So the question as asked was, which competency is the new decision making? Because one of the core skills for a police officer and for a supervisor and manager is decision making. There's only one thing worse than a bad decision, a decision that didn't go right, and that is not making any decision whatsoever. That's the worst kind of decision making you can have. Things are going to go awry, things aren't going to go to plan, you're going to make decisions that aren't perfect, but that's called being in the police, and as long as you learn from them, and as long as those mistakes were honest mistakes as opposed to intentional mistakes, then you're fine. I spent 28 years in the police, and most of the time I spent making mistakes and learning from them. It's just the nature of the beast. So it's a common question which gets asked, can you tell me about a time when you've made a difficult or challenging decision? And they want to hear about a difficult or challenging decision, they don't want to hear about a big decision. So go to some of my other videos when I explain the difference between difficult and big. But I scratched my head a little bit and thought, which competency does this sit under? Now, my client suggested it's the we take ownership competency, where it talks about I actively identify and respond to problems. Yeah, that's part of decision making. And I seek feedback. Yeah, that's part of decision making as well. So once I've made a decision and I've started to put into place a series of actions, I'm going to watch what's happening and seek feedback from others to see and make sure that what we're doing is the right thing. But I thought it's a bit limited, that. So then I went over to the competency for we analyse critically, where it talks about how I think critically about issues, I take in information quickly, I separate information into what's relevant and not relevant, I understand the reasons behind the problems, I refer to procedure before a decision, I weigh up the pros and cons, and I make decisions in line with the code of ethics and values. Now for me, this is all in the wrong order. If I had pieces of card and each one of these was on a piece of card, I'd reorder them, and maybe that's a task for you, for my client who I know is going to watch this because I promised I'd send them a link. So if you'd like to reorder them, you should be able to reorder all of those into an order that fits in nicely with the national decision model. So suppose if you are asked that question, they're going to have to assess you against multiple competencies. But that's what's going on now anyway. So if you are asked a question at the Search Assessment Centre or at the new Metropolitan Police Day 1, where they are using the Competency and Values Framework, or in the final interviews, or in a promotion interview, that's using the CVF as the measure of your success or otherwise at the interview, then they are going to assess you against multiple competencies. So this is where I often talk about stop focusing on the competencies and focus on being able to answer really good questions about things like a time when you've had to make a difficult or challenging decision, a time when you've worked with others to solve a problem, a time when you've challenged inappropriate behaviour, a time when you've championed or you've supported change, a time when you've supported someone who was struggling with something. Those are the sort of questions that you're going to get asked, and they're going to fit inside different competencies. Or if you are told that there'll be one question from each competency, then if you just talk in decision making about how you actively identified the problem and sought feedback, it's going to be a very, very poor answer. So one of the things I'd do, especially if you're one of my clients, is I'd nip over to my clients only Facebook group and I'd take a look at the videos there which talk about how to answer a really good competency question in detail using the SAARL process, which, forget STAR, it's too confusing. SAARL stands for situation, where you're going to also describe the impact on others and yourself of that situation. You're just going to describe your aim. So what did I aim to achieve? Plus your options. What options did you consider? And why did you decide on the option that you did consider before you started to take the next stage of the SAARL model, which is the action, where you're going to talk about how you did it, not just what you did. And you're going to talk about how you felt as well. And the reason why you're going to talk about how you felt is because it's the wheel of confusion, folks. Let me just open up this flip chart, because there's also links to decision making in the values part of the Competency and Values Framework, which talks about making fair and objective decisions, using the best available evidence, clearing our rationale for decisions, ensuring that they are clear and evidence-based. So far in our SAARL model, we're talking about not just what we did, but how we did it, and then we're going to talk about what the result is, and then we're going to talk about the L, which is for learning. So upon finishing this, whatever it was, or upon the is this you being addressed, I then reflected on how I'd done. I sought some feedback from others, and having thought about it and having thought about what went well, what didn't go well, I decided that should I deal with something similar in the future, I'd do it differently by doing X, Y, and Z. So if you think about that SAARL model, it ticks all the boxes. Let's just have a look and see if it ticks all the boxes. Did you actively identify and respond to the problem? Well, yes. Because you're going to be talking about a situation where you weren't asked to do something, you spotted the problem and you gave 120% without being asked to do so. Did you seek feedback? Yes, that comes in the learning part of the SAARL model. Did you think critically about the issues? Yes, because in the situation part, you're talking about the impact on yourself, on others, on the team, on the reputation of the organisation. Did you take in information quickly? Yes, because in your situation part, you're going to talk about how you spoke to other people to gather further information about the problem. Did you separate the information into what was relevant and wasn't relevant? Well, you could talk about that, how you spoke to one person who gave you an opinion, but that opinion seemed to have no evidence base behind it. It had nothing behind it other than that person's gut feeling. Did you understand the reasons behind the problems? Yes, because you spoke to a lot of people and asked them for their opinion about the issue. Did you refer to procedure before you made a decision? Yes, you did, because when you're talking about your aim and the options that you considered, you're also going to talk about why you decided to discard certain options because they didn't fit in with the procedure. Did you weigh up the pros and cons? Yes, because in talking about why you chose a particular option, you're going to talk about things like risk and threat and harm, and why you needed to do something straight away as opposed to leaving it to fester. Did you make those decisions in line with the Code of Ethics and Values? I certainly hope you did. If you're doing the right thing in difficult or challenging circumstances, even though no one's watching, that's integrity, folks. And if you're making those difficult decisions, that's integrity, so it's in line with the Code of Ethics. The values part, impartiality. Did you make a fair and objective decision with the best available evidence? Yes, you'd be talking about that in the options part of the SAARL model. And were you clear in your rationale for your decision? Exactly the same thing. Did you ensure that they were clear and evidence-based? Exactly the same thing. So I put confused there because you might be thinking, confused? Yes, I still am. Every time I look at the Competency and Values Framework, I get confused. So here's the good news, folks. Focus on answering the question using the SAARL model with as much detail as you possibly can, and all of those competencies will fall out of the sky. All of those tick boxes against the values will all fall out of the sky. You don't need to worry about the Competency and Values Framework. Don't worry. Practice, practice and practice, and go out and find the experiences that are going to allow you to answer these questions in the Competency and Values Framework. And like I said, they're going to be around things like challenging inappropriate behaviour, making difficult decisions, working alongside others to solve complex and difficult problems, supporting vulnerable people, supporting and managing change within an organisation. Those are the sort of questions you're going to get asked about. You're also going to get asked questions about a time when you may have demonstrated integrity. So doing the right thing in difficult or challenging circumstances, even when no one's watching. So I do provide in the client-only group and for my clients a series of questions which are strong possibilities in terms of the sort of questions that you might get asked from the Competency and Values Framework. Go to the client-only group. There is a document there called CVF questions, and it gives you a marking guide and all sorts of supplementary questions that you may get at your interview. So focus on that document and you should be absolutely fine. So there you go. There's no need for confusion. Just focus on answering the question well and everything else will take care of itself. I know it sounds simple, but seriously it will, folks. And practice, practice, practice. Hope you found this useful. If you'd like to find out a little bit more information about my courses and everything, like I said, there's a link below. If you're watching this on YouTube, I think you can subscribe up there, or is it up there? And if you're watching this on Facebook, just like away, folks, like away. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye for now.